the Alipin refers to the lowest social class among the various cultures of the Philippines before the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th and 17th centuries. In the Visayan languages, the equivalent social classes were known as the oripun, uripon, or ulipon. The most common translation of the word is servant, or slave, as opposed to the higher classes of the timawa maharlika and the tumao maginoo. This translation, however, is inaccurate. The concept of the Alipin relied on a complex system of obligation and repayment through labor in ancient Philippine society, rather than on the actual purchase of a person as in Western and Islamic slavery. Indeed, members of the Alipin class who owned their own houses were more accurately equivalent to medieval European serfs and commoners. Etymology: Alipin and uripon come from the transitive form of the archaic Visayan root word udip. It derived from the word meaning to let live in the senses of letting a war captive live or paying or ransoming someone for a debt that exceeds the value of their life. Subclasses: as a social class, Alipin had several subclasses based on the nature of their obligations and their dependence on their masters, horohan or horolan, a hereditary class of uripon unique to the Visayans and first mentioned in the Boxer Codex. Instead of serving obligations through labor, the horohan instead served their masters as warriors. Unlike the timawa warrior class, they were not considered nobility, though higher status horohan were virtually indistinguishable from lower-class timawa. Like the timawa, they may also sometimes be obligated to do communal work and paid a vassalage fee known as dagupan. Alipin na mamahay refers to Alipin that have their own houses, which is usually built on the property of their masters. They are also known as tuay, mamahay, or tumaranpok in Visayan. They are not at all slaves, as they are often only obligated to pay a percentage of their earnings or harvests to their masters and no more, thus making them more similar to the medieval European serfs and commoners. They may sometimes be called upon by their masters for harvesting, sowing fields, building new structures, or for aid in emergencies, though these are usually not part of their obligations. They can also freely buy their way out of debt and can marry without the consent of their masters. In the Visayas, some tuay may also serve their masters in war, like the horolan. Alipin Zar Gigilid refers to unmarried Alipin without a house and whose existence is completely dependent and insufficiently undesirable on the graces of their masters. They are also known as hiohay, iui, or tomataban in Visayan. They can only marry with the consent of their current master. Once married, an Alipin Sigigilid becomes an Alipin na mamahay, as the master is not obligated to feed and house the family of the latter. Their obligations can also be transferred or sold to another master. Most of the people belonging to this class are the unmarried children of Alipin na mamahay parents, or are unransomed captives taken from wars or raids. At lower ranks than the above are the Alipin of Alipin. The Alipin Zar Gigilid of an Alipin na mamahay was called Bulisik, while an Alipin Zar Gigilid of an Alipin Zar Gigilid was known by the even more derogatory Bulishlis. At an even more lower social rank than the latter two are Alipin who were acquired through war who came from other communities. They are often treated as non-persons until they become fully integrated into the local culture. Differences from the Western concept of slavery: while the Alipin does, indeed, serve another person, historians note that translating the term as slave in the Western sense of the word may not be fully justifiable. Documented observations from the 17th century indicate that there may be significant differences between the Western concept of slave, and the pre-Hispanic Filipino concept of Alipin. Some academics prefer to use the more accurate terms debtors, serfs, bondsmen, or dependents instead. The lowest class of Alipin originating from prisoners of war are traded like market goods initially. But unlike Western slaves, subsequent transfer of the Alipin to a new master is priced at the value of the remaining bond. It is the labor obligation of the Alipin being sold, not the person. Most Alipin usually acquire their status either voluntarily, by inheriting the status of their parents, as a form of legal punishment for crime, or by being spared from execution after being captured in wars or raids. Alipin who acquired their status by debt are known as tinubos, and their creditors may sell their services for profit at the price of the debt incurred. The actual degree of obligations of the Alipin can vary considerably. It is dependent on the monetary equivalent of the obligation owed and is usually limited in duration. An Alipin can earn their freedom or gain higher status by marriage, being set free by their masters, buying it with their earnings, fulfillment of the obligations, or by extraordinary accomplishments and bravery in battle. The inheritance of the Alipin status is subject to a complex system of rules dependent on the offspring's condition known as the sada. For example, the first child of a male freeman and a female Alipin will be free, but their second child will be an Alipin like the mother. And so on with the rest of the children. If the number of children is not even, the last child will be a partial Alipin. The master of an Alipin namamahay may also sometimes take one child of the latter as an Alipin zargijilid in the case of the latter's death. They may become Sibin or Ginagatan of their masters and may be set free upon the master's death. An Alipin who inherits the debts of their parents was known as a Gintubo. Children of parents who were both Alipin were known as Ginlubos, while the children of Ginlubos were known as Lubos and uripon. Partial Alipin retain their Alipin ancestors' obligations according to their degree of relation. The partial Alipin child of a timawa and an Alipin, for example, will inherit half of their Alipin parents' obligations, while the grandchild of an Alipin will only owe a quarter. Half Alipin whose services were scheduled alternately by months are referred to as bulan or pikas. Quarter Alipin were referred to as tila or sajapat. They could also freely buy their way out of service if they can afford it. Part or all of the Alipin duties of the parents are often taken over by their children. References. Further reading, Leon Ma. Guerrero. The First Filipino. Guerrero Publishing. Manila. Reynaldo Oliveros. Philippine History and Government. Uripon Publishing. Manila.